I definitely want to get into some strategies that you're having kind of these first 2 months full time. Tell me a little bit about, not quitting your day job to get this thing up and going. What did that look like to kind of have this as like a part-time thing during that 1 year?
Like when you're full-time on a business, you are all in. And financially, I'm all in. Like I cannot let this fail.
Do you feel like you kind of built on a brand that you already have familiarity with?
Defy has a lot of competition, but I don't think it's like any other brand. It's kind of all new to me. So I'm in the process of prospecting, networking. I want to build believers. Like if you don't believe in my product, I'm not going to try to convince you. Admittedly, I was kind of scared of pitching investors and even doing like pitch competitions where you get grants and stuff, which is a little different. But I realized I actually really like it. So I definitely wanted to be a consumer. Anything I do, whether it's my own brand or a brand that I'm running, I want to be a consumer of it, because if I'm not going to be as passionate. So I definitely wanted to gear it to myself as well. You have to make sure who has the biggest buying power. That's always been Gen Z and millennial consumers. So if you're not targeting Gen Z and millennial consumers, you are aging out with your demographic.
Hey guys, how you doing today? This is John Klein with the $100 Million Podcast. Super excited today. We have an awesome guest, Tatyana, our $100 Million guest of the day. Tatyana, how are you doing?
Hi, John. I am doing really well. Thank you so much for having me on. Super excited to be here.
That's super awesome. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Sure. So, Tatyana, and if you pronounced it in your head right, that's awesome. I am the founder of Defy Snacks, and we make premium chocolate, milk or dark chocolate with some functional ingredients as well as sprouted organic buckwheat. Originally, I'm from Ukraine, and we loved buckwheat as an ingredient. And when I moved to the US, it was kind of really surprising that we used it in nothing because it's such an incredible superfood. So I started Defy recently after my time at Mars Wrigley and some others like J&J and Bausch& Lomb. I consider myself a brand or marketing expert. I've had agencies, hundreds of people in agencies working for me, as well as have led teams in growing million and sometimes billion-dollar brands. So I ultimately decided to do it for myself. I'm a brand lover and a brand builder. And to finish off, I kind of feel like I started or learned my brand building from favorite people, Professor Scott Galloway, who he probably doesn't even know who I am, but he's made such an impression for me. I had to go into brand marketing as my career. And then, of course, now I'm building a brand of my own. And by the way, I showed you the wrong pack. This is our top seller and my favorite. So yeah, I'm really good to be here. Excited to have the conversation.
That's super awesome. Tatyana, we're super excited to kind of hear a little bit more about your story, talk about Defy, talk about any kind of strategies and stuff like that that you're doing to turn this into a $500 million plus business. But speaking of $500 million, you have 15 years of experience with Mars and J&J, managing over $500 million portfolios and different things like that. At what point along the way were you tired of doing such a good job at promoting and branding and marketing all these other brands, and you were like, I'm going to do this for myself? What was kind of like that turning point for you?
So it's always been in the back of my mind. And I actually was there when Daniel Lubetzky, he sold Kind, or he sold a part of Kind to Mars Wrigley. I was sitting in the audience along with hundreds of other people, and he came on stage to give a speech, and he was just so personable. He quite literally took a phone call from his son on stage. That's how cool the guy was. And I looked around and I'm kind of like, I don't think I want to be like the rest of the suits, forgive the expression. But I want to be like that guy. How has he created, the special brand, grew it, and then had this massive exit? So this was kind of the spark. Fast forward years later, I got promoted a few times, and every time that I've gotten promoted, I would be kind of a little bit dissatisfied because you utilize a lot of your skills, but you don't utilize all of them. You're not kind of pushed to the max. And I am all about maximizing my potential. I'm an immigrant. My parents moved here when I was 12, and I moved here when I was 12. And really, like, not maximizing your potential in my eyes, having this great opportunity is not an option. So it's always kind of been right, what do I do? And then in the most recent role, I was a brand director for Bausch and Lomb. And I loved the people. I liked the brand that I was on, but I probably liked 20% of what I was doing, or I feel like I was maximized to 20% of my capacity. And so I actually ended up starting Defy as a hobby. Just, can I put it out there, see if it sticks? I actually started making it in my kitchen. Brought it to my gym because I was like, hey, we actually everything I do goes around insights. We definitely use data and a key insight behind innovation, behind communication, and when we later hopefully have major campaigns, it will also be very much insight driven. But the insight behind Defy is that with Gen Z and millennial consumers, fitness is synonymous with health. So if you're kind of working out and you're a foodie, you like to eat, you're not watching every single calorie. And there's also this like empowerment piece to it where, especially as females, I don't want to watch every single calorie. Strong, like I do CrossFit, so that they kind of have a very similar methodology of strong is beautiful. And me doing one more pull up is better than me not burning 10 calories or, watching my calories. So that's kind of the insight behind Defy. And when I looked, I was taught to find white spaces in the market. GLP-1s are a huge, huge trend. 1 in 4 people are actually on GLP-1s based on a recent report that I saw. And that's kind of incredible, right? So like things are turning. It used to be low calorie at all costs. Add some fake sugars. You don't know what they're doing. They might still be spiking your insulin in the short term. They might also be giving you other diseases down the road. But whatever, you had low calories. So that is still around. And if you go to like things like Expo West, you'll see people using fake sugars. You'll see people using sugar substitutes. Our bodies don't always know how to process them. Sugar was the bad guy, but our body knows what to do with it. So not too much, not too little, not too much, just a little less is usually not so bad. So that's kind of like where Defy was born. There's really indulgent things. You just eat the whole bag. You kind of have a hard time self-controlling it. Once the bag is open, it's gone. I don't know anyone that has self-control. If you do, you're my hero. And then on the other side, all these fake sugar substitute. There's a lot of even bigger brands out there that are still betting on these trends that I personally am seeing completely going away in 5 to 10 years. So I think they're betting on the tail end of the trend versus the beginning. So anyway, that's how Defy got started. And we've really been around for a little over a year. I finally quit my day job. It's like month 2 on Defy full time. And I do feel like in the last 2 months, I've done more than I did the last entire year. Super, super energized, super excited.
Heck
Our
yeah.
product is still Gen 1, but I know exactly what to do to improve it. I've gotten so many consumer and retailer insights. So I'm super focused.
That's awesome. I definitely want to get into some strategies that you're having kind of these first 2 months full time, where you're going, kind of what things you're doing now. But I want to talk a little bit about, you're the director of Bosch and Lomb for the start of this. Tell me a little bit about, not quitting your day job to get this thing up and going. What did that look like to kind of have this as like a part-time thing during that 1 year?
Yeah, basically like a hobby. And I would get so annoyed when someone was like, "Oh, you're not a full-time founder. So it's like a hobby." I'd be like, "Yeah, but you don't understand what I'm doing." I was like, I'd and I have 2 young kids. I was getting up, going, doing my regular job. That, by the way, sometimes had heavy travel. Then coming home, putting the kids to sleep, and then logging in at like 8 o'clock and going to like 2 or 3 a.m. So it was not sustainable, but I was like, I'm willing to do this for a short period of time to get this brand going. But it was incredibly taxing, incredibly difficult. I actually probably wasn't the healthiest. I did a lot of sitting. I probably wasn't the healthiest I could be, which like the Defy thing is, right? Like it's moderation. You need to be healthy. So uh, contributed to the decision of going full time. But now that I am full time, I kind of see what everyone was saying, or not everyone, some people's feedback. It is so different. Like when you're full time on a business, you are all in. and financially I'm all in. Like, I cannot let this fail. It is a different feeling from, oh, hey, I'm doing this on the side, but then like this main thing is giving me and my family a paycheck. So now all of the time, I was like, ironically, I was like, maybe I'll go to sleep at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm still working crazy hours, but I almost don't notice it. I love it. I absolutely love what I do. This is the best job I've ever had. And my only really big fear is running out of cash, because cash is the lifeline of a business, especially a cash intensive business like any CPG brand, really, but especially chocolate.
Do you feel like you kinda built on a brand that you already have familiarity with other categories, kinda like this category? Tell me a little bit about how that is either benefiting you with launching Defy or maybe hurting you in some ways.
So I don't think Defy has a lot of competition, but I don't think it's like any other brand. So get, it could be displayed in a bunch of different sets. It has some similarities to really huge mass chocolate brands, but then it is better for you chocolate. So even if you just took the chocolate in it by itself, it is a better option. It's non-GMO chocolate. But then we also add fast and slow absorbing proteins that kind of help you mitigate some of that. So do we have reference brands? Yes. Do we have competition for share of stomach? Yeah, infinite. But we are so unique, and that's exactly what you want. So you want to cause that confusion. And I get that from retailers all the time. They're confused. They don't know which set to put us in. And I have my recommendations. I even like draw a diagram, or sometimes I'll go into a store and like literally place it next to the brands that I think they should be next to. But some of it, it helps to actually have them accept it and test it. So we have some really early wins with retailers that are believing in us early, and I believe in always supporting those people that believe in you early. So we're getting tested in chocolate. We're also getting tested in bars, which was a surprising category to me. But if you put it next to like a Cliff Bar, for example, it's not a competitor, right? Like it's a bar, like it's a different usage occasion almost, but it's the same target audience. So imagine Cliff Bar with this guy next to it. So I think, I guess there are a lot of reference brands. Competition for the share of stomach is endless, but being unique and being able to be versatile to compete and kind of win on multiple different selling factors is kind of what I was hoping to create. And this is Gen 1, we're optimizing our product for Gen 2 to be able to do that even better. I
Mm.
don't know if that answers your
Speaking of
question.
Yeah, speaking of uniqueness, tell me a little bit about more of the buckwheat. I know you're Ukrainian, it's in your DNA, the buckwheat. How much of an impact do you feel like that's gonna put on you having like a unique selling proposition?
So it's interesting. Buckwheat has come and gone, and it's kind of been reduced to, okay, this is something I use in my pancakes, or it's like buckwheat flour. It's something I use for this very limited occasion when I decide to be gluten free, or for those that have actual like celiac disease. They probably know about buckwheat. But it really hasn't taken off as a huge trend that it needs to be. Like quinoa, like how is quinoa a bigger trend and more well known than buckwheat? It doesn't make sense to me. So buckwheat is not a selling proposition because it's misunderstood. But in a way, it's very similar to myself, my brand. It's a misfit, but it's like a total superstar, right? It has, first of all, it's not a grain. The name is misleading. There's no wheat in it. It's not a gluten. It's a flour seed. And the nutrients in it are incredible. First of all, like from a sustainability perspective, it grows anywhere. So it's very low maintenance, and anything it touches, it just makes better. Your gut, the earth it grows in, it makes it super fertile. And then going back to the nutrients, there's antioxidants, vitamins, protein of its own, fiber. And fiber is kind of so I'm using fiber as a vehicle to kind of introduce buckwheat to the world. And there are brands that are doing it, and they're doing an excellent job. But with emerging brands, we don't have humongous P&G like budgets. So we try to be scrappy, hook that consumer with the proposition, and then tell them about buckwheat. So that's kind of been my approach. That's why I don't call out buckwheat on front of pack. It's always back of pack. In my Gen 2, I might actually throw a few buckwheat seeds in there. I'm still going to call it a superfood on the front of pack because I don't have millions of dollars to do a TV commercial around buckwheat. But maybe someday I will. Generally speaking, buckwheat has been a pleasant surprise, and most people don't know about it. If you just leave it on shelf and leave it to the consumer, unfortunately, that's not a selling point. It's a turnoff. There's a lot of consumers that will walk away from it because they're like, oh, I don't want some grain, or I don't want wheat. They don't understand it. And with consumers, if you don't have them within 2 to 3 seconds, they're fast shoppers. They're not, unless like something looks really amazing, they're not really going to stick around. Buckwheat is only a selling proposition, I guess, once you already are hooked. Once
Yeah,
someone's like, this is really great, and what is this thing about buckwheat? That's when you're like, all right, now I got you. I can tell you about buckwheat. So it's like a step one, step two type of thing.
totally, totally. Tell me a little bit, since we're kind of talking about clients and their perspective. What's your ideal client profile, and how'd you come up with it?
When you're talking about clients, are you talking about consumers or retailers?
Consumers.
Okay. So in terms of consumers, we don't do a lot of DTC. We do have a website, we have an Amazon, but that's really just to provide a better proposition for wholesale, so our retailers. However, having said that, our ideal consumer is, most chocolate shoppers are female, by the way, so it's a she. She is a Gen Z millennial consumer. She is active. She is the one that thinks of, hey, fitness, like I'm getting it in no matter what. It's like brushing my teeth. I'm getting it in no matter what. She's busy, so she doesn't have the time to kind of make something like a Defy snack in her kitchen herself, but she enjoys the really grab and go occasion, an occasional 3 o'clock pick me up. So instead of chocolate, she'll eat 1 or 2 pieces. She's usually the shopper for the household. Then she also shops at natural retailers or grocery. And generally speaking, our MSRP is fairly high. So we do try to target retail locations and therefore consumers with higher income. Eventually, I do want to get my price point down. I want everyone to be able to enjoy Defy, but unfortunately, with premium ingredients, my costs are incredibly high. So even with the high MSRP and the high price point, it's not like the most profitable start of the business, just because again, like chocolate is super expensive, as well as some of the other ingredients are kind of premium. Buckwheat is probably the only one that's like amazing for you, but wow, not as expensive as you would think for the benefits that you get out of it.
For sure, for sure. Speaking of, like, since we're kinda talking about, like, your ICP for this specific product, the reason I kinda bring that up is, as you're thinking of a product that you think that you wanna do, you're working for Mars and J&J, and you see all these different brands and products. Did you kind of, like, formulate, "Okay, where would be a good market? Who would be a good ICP that I could target and make a product around?" Or was this something that you wanted to do for yourself, and you're hoping that other people like you are gonna like it?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So it's a little bit of both. So I definitely wanted to be a consumer. Anything I do, whether it's my own brand or a brand that I'm running, I want to be a consumer of it, because if I'm not going to be as passionate. So I definitely wanted to gear it to myself as well. But I am N of one. I'm not all consumers. So you have to, in order to have a mass driving business, you have to make sure who has the biggest buying power. That's always been Gen Z and millennial consumers. So if you're not targeting Gen Z and millennial consumers, you are aging out with your demographic, unfortunately. So, I mean, there are exceptions, of course, like if it's some disease that happens after a certain age, I get it. Other than that, if you have a consumer product and you're not targeting Gen Z and millennial consumers, I think it's a miss. So I've always wanted to target Gen Z and millennial consumers. And I really look deep at the insights of macro trends. What's happening? What's going away? What's not going away? It's a little bit of a guess. Everyone's taking a guess. I'm betting that protein is not going away. It's actually protein as whey protein as a ingredient and as a market is expected to more than double by 2032. a little crazy because the demand is going to outgrow the supply. The supply is not more than doubling. So, you want to make sure that if you're launching a brand and it kind of primarily depends on whey, you want to future proof that a little bit. So, we do have some alternate sources. I personally do not believe in plant protein substitutes. I believe in getting your protein directly from plants if you're going to do that. But with substitutes, I mean, they're just derived in such different ways and they don't absorb entirely. So we actually found an amazing supplier that makes an alternative protein and has the same absorbency as whey, but doesn't have any harmful issues or byproducts associated with it. So I'm kind of like looking at that as well. So anyway, protein, big chunk. The next huge trend is fiber. Fiber is the next protein. We are fiber deficient. So I looked at that as well. And both Gen Z and millennial consumers care about that. And then I also looked at, hey, like what are like there's trends around ingredients, there's trends around snacks, but what like where do we live in right now? What is actually like not even on trend, but like where is the world today? Where is the US today? And really what I'm feeling, and maybe I'm in my own bubble, but it does seem like it is geographically relevant everywhere, in the US at least. But we were living in this like empowered universe where, again, universe within the US, where female consumers are making better choices. They're not starving yourself, like being the skinny model versus like going and lifting 300 pounds at a gym. I'd choose the girl that's lifting 300 pounds at the gym, right? So there's this like major shift in how we're viewing each other, but then also females. So I wanted to incorporate like being the misfit and a rebel that I am. I wanted to incorporate that into the brand personality. And so dual meaning to the brand as well. Defy stands for delicious, energizing fitness indulgence, but then also we're set out to defy how snacking is done and how business is done. So really kind of like contributing to that female empowerment kind of feeling that we're all building. And also, I don't talk about this often because there's usually not enough time in a podcast, but it is really important. Less than 2% of female companies, female-run companies get VC funding. So there's a huge gap in how some of these female-run businesses are being funded. We want to create, right now it's kind of negligent, but we want to create this circular economy where we're taking some of our profit and donating it to other female entrepreneurs who are, I guess, where I was a year ago, because every year you kind of grow, you learn, and you get to the next level. So I really wanted to just be more involved in the community, help other female entrepreneurs and just entrepreneurs in general. Honestly, like I will never say no to another founder that truly needs advice or needs help on something. It might take them a while to hear back from me, but I will eventually make sure that I'm helping them out. So to answer your question, I guess a little more directly, like really looked at macro trends, looked at the Gen Z and millennial consumers. Yes, I'm a consumer myself. I had to be a consumer of my own brand, but that wasn't the only consideration. It was really like, if I'm not gearing towards Gen Z and millennial consumers, I'm kind of missing the mark. And then what trends and what like macro feeling of empowerment can I tap into?
100%, 100%. We talked a little bit about quality of ingredients. We talked about your protein source and how quality that is. We talked about buckwheat and how, much of a superfood it is. A lot of times, though, I feel like people, probably won't be able to taste the difference. Maybe some people would between those ingredients. I think the main power ingredient that I want to get into is chocolate. So I know that you have Chef Jean, right? And let you tell a little more about him, and he helped with Hue chocolate, who my wife loves Hue chocolate. She has it like all the time. So, and I do like Hue chocolate too. So tell me a little bit about how you. This is kind of a two-part question. Tell me about the chocolate, why it's unique, why you guys are so cool and it tastes good, and then also tell me a little bit about like why this partnership, because I know that you did it in your kitchen at first. I'm sure you didn't know him before then, or maybe you did. Why him? How'd you get connected with him? Was that partnership worth it? And then tell us a little bit about the chocolate.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So I also just realized we have to get you and your wife some Defy Snacks. I think if you like cute chocolate, I think you're gonna like us as well. So that's
My
that's
wife
gonna
will
be
like it,
great.
yeah. Chocolate is the way
So
of my wife's heart, so
that's awesome. That's many women. So that's great. Jean Francois Bonnet is this genius chef. It was in search, so I started making product in my own kitchen. I actually had a friend from GSK Consumer who used to work in white space innovation with me, like very early stage innovation. And she helped me. It just so happened that she was a nutritionist. This is misdefining her. She was a PhD in nutrition. So she helped me kind of like get some initial formulations, and then we played around with some chocolate and some buckwheat in the kitchen. Then I was making it myself in my own kitchen. I was bringing it to my gym, seeing if people like it. People were like, "Oh my god, when are you bringing my next fix?" So I was like, "All right, people like it." So I started looking at, hey, okay, I know for a fact I've done this for Mars. I have to scale these formulations. What I'm making in my kitchen is not going to taste the same once you take it to a factory. Processes are incredibly different. So I ended up doing a search. I used a lot of different resources. So if listeners have heard of different types of groups like Startup CPG, Naturally Naturally Network, but I'm currently in Naturally New York because of my location. Those were incredibly helpful in trying to find connections for R&D specialists. And you can find an R&D specialist that's a little bit more like R&D like, or you can find a chef. And chefs generally think more creatively, and then the R&D person is like, "Oh, this will work, this will scale, this won't scale." So both are incredibly valuable. So I found, almost accidentally, Jean-Francois Bonnet. He was about 40 minutes away, or his factory was about 40 minutes away from me. I reached out to him and found out his incredible history of making huge chocolate. He also, I mean, he has a storybook of his own, but he is truly just a mastermind when it comes to taste. So he really honed in and got us the taste for our four flavors. He also helped out with some additional innovation that we decided to delay in launching, but the taste is absolutely there. Where I am still optimizing, and everyone that has a CPG brand will probably relate to this. You know, there's like small scale manufacturing. What can you do now when you get bigger? What can you optimize then? How can you reduce your cost? Also, how can you get to the claims that you want to get to? And then there's like scale, like, all right, everything's now like operating exactly. And we're just like pumping those things out, and they're all as perfect as they can be. So Jean-Francois Bonnet helped me kind of scale the formulation to very small scale, like 10,000 units was my first purchase order. They made it in a few different batches. It was all manual. Someone was telling me I should put handmade on my packaging, and I'm like, well, it's not always going to be handmade, so I'm just going to keep that off for now. But it was practically handmade. It was insane how amazing the process was, but also very inefficient, so therefore very expensive. So he was a mastermind when it came to kind of taste. And now I'm in the process of, I have those formulations, I own those formulations. I'm in the process of, okay, how do I, now the shape is too large. We couldn't get it to be smaller and truly bite sized because we didn't have the machinery. So the chocolate solidifies too quickly. We couldn't get to the exact claims that we wanted to and get more protein via the inclusions because, again, same issue. So now with my new co-manufacturing partner, I'm kind of figuring out, hey, how do I maintain that amazing taste that this like genius of a chef created, but get exactly what I want out of it, which was the original concept. So bite size, high protein, potentially high fiber, and also like really snacks and improve, because like our bag is kind of big, it's 4 ounces. I find so one or two pieces usually is enough because of the nutrient density. However, because people like the taste, they still do eat the whole thing. And then it's like a dinner, you get 25 grams of protein or more per bag. But I do want to maintain the protein and maybe even increase the protein, but then calorically I still want it to be a little bit more permissible, even though we're not about calories. But like, you still don't want anyone to feel guilty about the choices that they're making. So anyway, Jean Francois Bonnet was kind of like the beginning of it all. And I'm still in touch with him. He still is my formulator. So when we do additional flavors, I'm still consulting with him because he's like one of the best that I've seen in the chocolate in my chocolate time, even when I was at Mars Wrigley. But again, there's a difference. R&D scientist, like more scientific versus chef. And it is beneficial to work with both.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, so you are raising money over $1 million. How is your experience raising money and pitching to investors? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I had to switch co-manufacturing partners because we've outgrew the demand with the demand that we were having. We outgrew our prior one that was incredibly manual. I was going to start raising earlier. I delayed the raise, so now we're going to kick off shortly. And I'm targeting to close fairly quickly. We're targeting $1 million, and we're raising it via a safe vehicle with a standard discount and a fairly standard cap as well. This is my first time raising money. I have raised money from my friends and family, so it's really nice to know that my friends and family believe in me. And then when you start going beyond that, it's kind of all new to me. So I'm in the process of prospecting, networking. You also want to make sure, I mean, even this early on, and I've heard other people say it, and you kind of don't really get it until you're in it. I want to build believers. Like, if you don't believe in my product, I'm not going to try to convince you. If I have to work so hard, like it's an amazing opportunity. I want someone that wants to like get in and grow this thing with me, that sees the same insights, that sees the same trends as me. I want someone that believes in me. And if they don't, I mean, they can come back when it's much more expensive to come in. So I guess the experience, to answer your question, has been, I mean, it's all new. So I guess I didn't really know what to expect. But I feel like, especially since I've now been full-time on the business, I feel like, like you kind of learn who your true believers are, which like your friends and family. And then like having this like rock, kind of like rocking attitude of, if you believe in the same thing and you want to like come in and build this thing with me, has really worked. I have a few people, and like I said, I've been networking. I have a few people that are interested, and I don't know exactly the size of checks they're going to write, but I know a few people that are interested in coming in with us. And our check minimum is $25,000. And you kind of want to do that. I don't know if a lot of founders are new to raising money too. The administrative behind it is definitely, especially if you're a single founder, is definitely a lot. And you have to just make sure like you're following through right away. Everything's kind of in order. You can't appear like you don't mean business, especially to investors that are like betting on you essentially. Like, it's not like your sales. I'm raising a pre-seed, so your sales are your sales, but it's really just like validation. It's more about your velocity story, and you as the founder. Do you have the grit? Do you have the experience? Are you able to build the right team? But yeah, it's been an awesome learning. I actually really enjoy. Admittedly, I was kind of scared pitching investors and even doing like pitch competitions where you get grants and stuff, which is a little different. But I realized I actually really like it. And then like when you have people that are like, that can geek out with you and they're like, oh my God, I see what you're talking about. It's like a high. So I guess my learning is I didn't realize I was going to like it so much. I guess I am truly meant to be a founder.
I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you went from managing, and we'll have a couple of questions of this. Half a billion portfolio, and you're used to having teams, and there's a lot of different people in different places within a business. Being a solopreneur right now, what is some management truth that kind of hit you hard?
Yeah, so that is a big change. You go and like my prior role, I worked with hundreds of people on the agency side, so it was a little bit more agency heavy. Other roles I was leading teams, not super large teams ever, but still you had a lot of help, a lot of support, and then like you had an entire supply chain team. You had an entire finance team and you were like, this is what I need for my margin. And then you kind of work together. So you're still like the center as a brand leader, you're still the center of your brand's universe, but you're not executing everything. And going to a founder, I'm like, I know what needs to be done, but how do I do it myself? So it was actually really critical for me to establish what are my most important functions and what can I do myself and what can't I do myself and what can I do myself and what are the things that I can sort of live without. So I haven't done social media myself for 20 years. Like I don't think I've ever done it because Facebook started when I was in college, right? Like when would I have done it? And then when I got into brand management, we had like hundreds of people on the agency side, like managing it for us. So it was never like actually even in something as simple as that. It was never in it. But like, can I figure out social media? Yeah, I can do a video. Like, who cares if it's not that great? Then it's maybe more authentic. So those types of things, I'm like, all right, anything marketing, I'm like, I can figure it out. I'll do it. I'll roll up my sleeves. It's kind of easy. But then things that are still easy to figure out, but more time consuming to figure out because it's been a hot second since I've done it. Like, I don't know, being in QuickBooks. I've never actually been in QuickBooks, but like having a bookkeeping support, especially when you're going a million miles an hour, just having that extra support is awesome. So that was a huge change, like quitting and not having entire teams of people supporting you and just like figuring it out on your own was probably what I spent the first few weeks of me being full time figuring out. And then like you'll change your people, so it's okay to kind of. My only advice to people is if someone doesn't work for you, so I use fractional sales because I am my head of sales for sure. I want to be in front of my most important customers. But like prospecting, does that always have to be me? Probably not. And then I've won a few pitch competitions. I actually won the Acosta pitch competition, which is the biggest in CPG, one of the biggest broker firms. So they're basically like your outside like salespeople. So once I raise, I get discounted services with them. I'm going to kick off and like really lean in a big way. So that to me is worthwhile because you can't multiply yourself. So yes, like I'd like to be there for the big accounts, but I also would like someone else to simultaneously do what I need to do and then sell me in that regard. And the only other thing I would say is AI. Using AI, I don't know. I don't think I used that much AI, and I probably should have. When I was at Bausch and Lomb, we did have a wonderful course that they all wanted us to take, but you're again moving a million miles an hour, and you're kind of like, yeah, like we get it. Like AI, you can now even advertise on AI. But I have like 3 AIs. And one of them is like my multiple people. It's like I'm checking, hey, do these financials make sense? It is so incredible. I'm like this is getting rid of like I would have had an analyst do it, and it would probably take that analyst like an hour and a half to do. Uh, Claude just did it for me in like 30 seconds. This is pretty amazing. So if you're not using AI, I would encourage you to learn the different AI tools that are out there and definitely utilize it. And I'm sure a lot of founders are already on top of it because especially if you're lean and mean, you kind of use everything that you have at your disposal. But that was the other, I guess, really great thing that came out of being resource constrained when the only resource is me.
100%. Yeah, no, AI is an absolute necessity in my life, and um, I love Claude, love Claude Code. Was able to automate a lot of systems and just different things, and it's just like, oh, it's just so nice. Um, Definitely worth,
Yeah.
and it's definitely a skill though, because people always like telling my little brother-in-law, he's like 12, and he was wondering like what he should do, and I was like, man, you need to learn how to prompt AI, and he's like, yeah, I know how to do that. You just tell it what to do, and I'm like, yes, hopefully one day, maybe it'll be, like, just as easy as that to do, like, absolutely anything, but, like, it is a skill, and I think that's, gonna be, like, super
Yeah.
important going forward is knowing how to write down a system and then have an agent do that system for you to the way that you want it done, and then, kinda have it do it itself and manage it. I think AI is, like, super impactful. I don't think it's been easier to I mean, it's never everybody says this, it's never been easier to have a CPG brand than it is today, just having all these different assists and different things with, as you said, market research, analysis, even tracking your ads accounts and stuff like that. It's just so good. Um, but moving on, again, you had lots of money you were managing, different things like that. What's one of the biggest financial realities that you realize? Because now as a founder, you're watching every single dollar and you're failing every single dollar. What's one of the biggest financial realities that you realized?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I knew CPG was very cash intensive, and like when we were at Mars Wrigley, it was ingrained in us that cash is kind of the lifeline of the business, and you really always need cash. A lot of our, even though I guess we had influence on total cash for the company because we were running our brands, but a lot of us were like, I mean, it's just like a cash number. And if we don't meet it, like our bonus structure is less. Like, in a way, in a large organization, it's kind of just a number. And you're like, all right, if we meet it, we don't meet it, whatever. Like you get the importance, but you don't really. Now, when it comes to being a founder, using your savings. So I've invested over $185,000 of my own money into this. So that's essentially my savings. I'm betting on myself. Some of it is 401k money too. And so I'm like, all right, well, if I quit my day job 5 years ago, I wouldn't even have them. So whatever, it's justified. But it runs through. It's incredibly cash intensive, runs through quicker than you think. So you need to make sure that you're budgeting effectively, nothing that you're kind of crystal clear on where you're spending, where you're not spending, and if there are surprises, try to like map out where the surprises come from. But that has been, I mean, again, like probably shouldn't have been a surprise, but it's been the biggest surprise. And a lot of it is dependent on what your goals are. So if your goal is to go quickly, validate quickly, then high growth, then it's even more cash intensive. So you just have to make sure that you're deciding what it is that you really want to do. And then like your retailer mix, right? Like DTC, Amazon even are usually more profitable, assuming you can get your ROAS to a really good ratio, right? If you're not breaking even, then it's not worth doing DTC. So I started with DTC and I couldn't figure it out. I'm not truly like I've always been a retail person selling through retail. So I'm not a true DTC person, but I actually met a potential advisor who's like, I mean, the things he can do, I've never seen another agency that's worked for me do. It was just incredible. Like he's light years ahead of anything I've seen. So I'm like, all right, well, do you want to partner? Do you want to do this for Defy? And chocolate's hard on DTC, but it's more. We have some other products coming, so it's more for those products. But trying to figure out that whole cash situation of like, hey, how do you balance so that you at least like have some cash coming in? And that's kind of why I'm even considering doing DTC when it's not really my expertise, and bringing someone as who's it's not just expertise. He's like above and beyond what I've seen. It's having the right mix so that you're not, just letting the cash go at a slower pace when that it's coming in. I mean, that's going to end up happening. But anything you can do to mitigate, I think has been something that I've been focusing on. And again, it's because it's always more, everything's always more expensive and always slower than you think it's going to be. So although you should have stretch goals, like definitely plan and bet on yourself, but then also have some contingency plans.
Love it. I love it. Tell me, I know you're educated. Tell me a little bit about kind of the best education that you found to be successful as a founder. Is it going to school? Do you think it's reading books, podcasts, mentors? Tell me a little about education.
So it's a great question because I think you can have any type of an education and it's always a plus. I don't think any type of education, whether it's podcasts, whether it's going back to school and getting your MBA, or talking to someone that's had incredible success in the area where you want to be successful, or reading a self-help book. I don't think any of it is ever a waste of time. You always learn something. And if you take one thing out of it, which generally you do, it is not time wasted. My MBA was probably one of the things that kind of was a catalyst for me to go into the brand management career. And then that was a catalyst for me wanting to be an entrepreneur because I kept getting to a point where I'm like, all right, so what's next? What's next? And like you know how if you learn something and then you teach it to someone else, you've kind of graduated, you truly know that thing. To me, being an entrepreneur after being a brand manager or a brand director or whatever is kind of like that. It's like me graduating into actually owning my skill. And what I didn't realize was interesting was you're still like I guess it's the fun part of it. You're still learning. There's so many things I didn't know. So I think any type of an education is great because it's going to push you in the right direction, kind of like it did me. Like my MBA did something, and then my time at Mars did something else. And then like all of the other things are also kind of working in unison to continue to help me improve. Like I'm not someone that's like stagnant and sitting around every day. I don't like my day to look the same. My day today does not look the same as it does tomorrow. And I welcome that. I love ambiguity. I thrive in ambiguity. You throw me a problem, I'll figure it out. Like having that confidence, I mean, there's really nothing better. And I feel like the baseline to that confidence you get from getting different types of education, like whether it's school, whether it's reading books, like you really the more the merrier in my opinion. And there are a lot of really great podcasts too out there that I listen to when I drive or work out, go rowing for 30 minutes. So there's like quick snippets too that it doesn't just have to be, formal schooling or whatever.
I love that. I love that. Well, Tatyana, thank you so much for coming on. Give us some plugs. How can we hear more about you? How can we get connected with you? And how can we get our hands on some yummy chocolate?
I love that question. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. If you just search for Tatyana Jones, there's not a lot of us. I also would love it if everyone could follow Defy Snacks. So it's Defy with an I Snacks on Instagram or Facebook. And then being in my 40s, I started my TikTok as well. So I'm on TikTok as Defy with an I Snacks with an underscore. So I do try to share different type of content, especially between Instagram and TikTok. I would love a follow there. We're growing. We're changing our retail strategy entirely. So it's going to switch as probably same time next year. It'll be totally different. But right now we're on our own website. So defywithanisnacks.com. We are also on Amazon for a short period of time because I'm going to remove it because it's going to melt soon. I don't want bad reviews. Then we are in about 150 retailers. We are going to be available if you're on the East Coast. We're going to be available at ShopRite. We're currently in 30 stores, but they're expanding our distribution. We're right now also in Rayleigh's. If you're familiar with Rayleigh's, we're in 52 of their stores. We will be in Hy-Vee, which is an amazing retailer as well. It's kind of like a ShopRite in the middle of the country. They're super cool, great retailer, and some more to come. I can't share because they haven't totally finalized their commitment yet. But yeah, we're expanding quickly. We're going from basically working with independent stores to large, either regional or national chains. And if you're a retailer listening, we are in UNFI and some other regional distributors as well. So hit me up.
That's super awesome, super awesome. Well, Tatyana, thank you so much for coming on. All those links, guys, are going to be in the description. So I'm going to have everything plugged that she just talked about. So please go take a look in the description. Reach out to her, get connected with her on LinkedIn, get your hands on some of these wonderful chocolates, and give them a try for yourselves. But again, appreciate you guys. This is the $100 million podcast. I'm John Klein, host of the podcast. Really appreciate you guys coming on. If you guys at all found value in this content, please subscribe, like the video, and share this with somebody else that you think is also going to find value in this content. And we'll see you next time. Bye.